of Training and Development with NIAPers. The people are on our screen, and the people who will be training us today are fabulous individuals. 3 of them are from our collective team that does training around the state, and the other used to be on our collective team and is now with New Choices, and who she'll probably share some information later on, but just want to share that everyone has had a lot of work history with us and have work history with you. They've trained you in your provider agencies, so please welcome them when they come on. You may notice when you came on that you don't hear anything other than the facilitators here speaking, and that's because we automatically put you on mute, and that's just to reduce the overall environmental noise. You'll also notice that you're not on video, and we want you to keep it that way. You know, sometimes Zoom is a little weird. As wonderful as it is, it sometimes gives you the opportunity to get on camera, and we're just going to ask you not to do that for this hour. However, we do want to hear from you, so please use your chat box. We're going to be taking questions, and we're going to have a, a QA session at the end. And I know we all want to talk about, excuse me, continuing education hours. And so for today, you will get 1.0 CE hours for this webinar. And we provide CE for master level social workers, so the LMSW, the LCSW, the L mental health counselor, and CPRP. So if you're one of those, please feel free to sign in and do an evaluation. For anyone else that we do not provide that for, you may want to do is just ask for a general certificate of attendance, and then we leave that in your hands if your licensing body is interested or will approve this specifically for you. So just before I go on, to let you know that this whole attendance and licensing CEU process is a bit complicated, but we tried very much to keep it very simple. By the very nature of you registering and being in the room, that just means we have your attendance. And then within 24 hours after today's webinar, within 24 hours, the system will automatically generate to you an evaluation form. You use that electronically, it'll go to your inbox, and you fill that out, and you will have to put your name on it. And that's because then when we get that back, we actually connect those 2 pieces, your attendance, your evaluation, that combines to actually make you eligible for CE hours. And so please do that within 24 hours. You will get that in your inbox. And then lastly, as you see on the screen, please be gentle with us. Our normal policy is a return date of around 30 business days. And I know that's like a month and a week, but I just ask you, please be gentle. We've been doing a lot of webinars this spring and this summer, and offering thousands of CEUs. So please be gentle, but feel free to email me at any time. Great. So this is who we are. We, being NIAPers, we consider ourselves a change agent organization, and we advocate and we work for public policies and the social conditions of people receiving mental health services, and that could be for trauma-related conditions, substance use, mental health. And we want people to achieve wellness and live in a community of their choice, and that's what we do and in everything that we do. And we like to say that we advocate, we educate, we demonstrate, and we innovate. So before I go on, I just want to sit back actually and tell you, just for half a minute, why we actually decided to do this webinar, Empowerment in Crisis. And it's just because of the knowledge that when people are under extreme stress, they want to define themselves, right? They want to take back some control, whether it's large or small. You may have seen on the news, some people like dyeing their hair purple or a mohawk. People just need to define themselves during this time. It's a way to take back some control. When there's lack of control, right? And there's lack of certainty in our future. And so this is a way for us to help you to support the people that you work with. So for today, we're going to go over the way to work and some tools that will help you to help the people you work with to begin to celebrate who they are, to be in control of who they are, to reduce the lack of certainty, and to redefine their narrative and to find their voice. So with that, I shall continue. So I hope you're watching, or listening, I should say, to Start Your Workday Mindfully, a daily NIAPRS 5-minute retreat. We do that every morning. It's uploaded on the NIAPRS website, which is very simple, nyaprs.org. And there's a new one every weekday, and it's uploaded, and it stays uploaded for 24 hours, but then you could just go to our YouTube channel and see all the previous ones. And we decided to do this at the very beginning of COVID because we felt that you, the people working in this tiring and exhausting helping profession, that you needed some time to really focus and center yourself. And so we decided to do this. One of the wonderful things that came out of it was that you are using this in your virtual groups with the people that you work with. So we totally encourage that. We want to hear from you, and we want to hear from them. All right. The other thing that we started in collaboration with the Coalition of Behavioral Health is what we call Strive for 5. And you have it here, and you're going to have the slides, but it's essentially the most simplest thing of communication. Reach out in this time of quarantining and uncertainty. Reach out to 5 people every single day and encourage them to reach out to 5 people every single day. So now let's get on to our objectives for today. You will hear from a participant who will share her lived experience and how she activated herself and she used the tools that we're going to be talking about today. And that's Colleen. And Colleen, thank you so much for being here and of giving of yourself. We're also going to hear about shared decision making. And then we're also going to talk about RAP. And so you're going to understand what RAP is and how it can empower people. And then you're also going to hear about advanced directives and how people can plan for very difficult life situations. Now I'm going to turn this over to Colleen. Thank you again, Colleen.
All right. So I'm going to talk about my recovery. I'm going to give you a few gems that I've learned along the way. I always liked this ancient Greek temple at Delphi. Know thyself is over the portal. And it's important because life is that path to know yourself. And when I got into recovery, I feel like the beginning of my recovery was like a daffodil. It was the first flower of spring, and the trumpet of the daffodil called me to recovery. And I also, like, there's so many flowers and different vegetation in the world. I need to discover others in my community, and I need to discover what it can be my role in my community. And just like in a community, we all work symbiotically off of each other. I may not know or be good at what you're good at. You may not be good at what I'm good at. So if we learn to work together, then it gives us to a better place. But I'd wandered off the path, and I was wondering, who am I? How do I recover from my co-occurring issues? This was the late 90s. The mental health system had become paternalistic. I was labeled as not being able to make decisions or even be part of my care. This was the spot I was in. I'd lost my voice, and I'd lost my confidence, and I didn't even know what I liked or wanted. I had to ask others. So I began my way home. My goal was to know myself and to be well. Next slide, please. So I began building a toolbox to help me see all of me, not just my mental health issues, and the real me. So I joined a group at the Buffalo Psychiatric Center called the Recipient Associate Managers. And we were doing a brand new thing. We were bringing the peer voice to every management meeting within the Buffalo Psychiatric Center. So we'd have 2 peers on every group, and we would go and learn how to work with the professionals and listen to what they had to say, and then, well, how's our perspective? What's the peer perspective? So that really helped me raise my self-esteem. I got a lot of support from my professional advisors. And then I wanted to help change the system. I really liked doing that. So I got hooked up with NIAPers, and that really gave me empowerment. And then I learned about how the mind works, how the conscious mind is 5%, 95% is our subconscious. And that's where I was holding all my limiting beliefs. So this gave me potential. I can get in there and work on those beliefs. And then I had to learn a lot about different philosophies, what ones fit my belief system, what recovery models work, who am I as a whole person. The adverse childhood experiences and the idea of resiliency really hit home for me. You can see on the tree how the adverse experiences, even into adulthood, that take all the leaves away, yet on the other side of the tree, with resiliency and trauma-informed care, the tree blossoms again. So that gave me hope. Next slide, please. All right, do you want to do the water? So that's a stream that I like to go to in my neighborhood, and it's very relaxing, and you just feel more healed after you spend an afternoon down there. So that was what I learned through the Wellness Recovery Action Plan. It took the randomness out of what was going to help me manage my emotions and my wellness. It gave me awareness that if I'm paying more attention to how I feel every day, that I can stay up in where where things are just I don't go down to breaking down in crisis. I stay up at the top about what takes me away from my wellness. And so that was really helpful. And then I really, Mary Ellen Copeland really talks about engaging your internal expert. And that was the thing where I lost my confidence and I didn't know how to make my own decisions. So it's a difficult concept to practice. It sounds simple, but there's a lot, like an onion, there's a lot of layers. And so if you can give people more opportunities to engage their internal expert and you can give them more support around it, I found that really helpful. The community groups, peer-led groups, the NIAPers conference, I just love, and then all the different stuff on social media. And but it's a bumpy road. It's up and down, but I'm getting to my destination. My destination is to know myself and to have life. That's the end of the road. So there's twists and turns, but I'm moving forward. So that's great. Next slide, please. Oh, and I wanted to tell you what Albert Einstein said. He said, everyone is a genius. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life believing it is stupid. So that's where you kind of have to find what is your talent and your skill. Okay, the advanced directives. I was presented with a psychiatric advanced directive, and that's informed by previous experiences. So like one of the things when I was a kid, when I would get upset, I was always sent to my room until I calmed down. So now if I get upset and I'm in a therapeutic situation, I ask that people give me a bottle of water and sit down and have a chat with me. Because that's what really the kind of support that I need. Not, go somewhere by yourself and calm down. But the advanced directives are kind of difficult to write. So I really like this quote, think big and start small. You want to do things in a micro way. It is such important work. It deserves to be done well. So next I wrote my physical preferences. This is about end of life, so I have no idea what that is all about. So I had to do some research and I had to look at what some of my ethics and values were. And I was really able to work with my different providers, making alliances. And I feel like I would never wind up being on a respirator in a vegetative state for a long time, because that's not what I want from my life. So advanced directives were very good. Next slide, please. All right. Then the quote that I have on the top, that you know, the traditional quote is, do as I say, not as I do. Well, my experience, what I do as I see you do. I don't do as you say to do, what you tell me to do. I do what I see you doing. So if you want to help people along their road to recovery, doing activities in the community, let them, the box is covering my words. So if you're going to go out into like a social environment with them, because you want them to learn skills and how to connect with people, let them observe you. How do you do it? And then go back and talk to them. Oh, well, we talked about, you know, a certain type of flowers and how to identify flowers, and a Facebook page about flowers. And then we started sharing all of that. And then the person will be able to see how to do that. And that's really helpful. And when you're writing treatment plans, pay attention. Beware of what the person is most important to them, what they're saying is most important to them. If you would teach back on the treatment plans, and ask and make sure that the participants' needs are being addressed appropriately in the treatment plan. The person has a physical or dental issue that is adding to their stress and their trauma, then make sure that that gets on the treatment plan, and you're not just putting in classes that are available through your program. You want to have the person say, like, okay, this is what we're going to be working on. You write it down, you give it to them, and then they're going to repeat it back to you. And if it's not there, they'll get an opportunity to say, oh, you know, I think we should put the dental thing first. And then there's Zoom meetings and videos, and there's so many great spiritual teachers that you used to have to spend a lot of money to get the privilege of experiencing, and they're all on the internet now. There's Byron Katie. I like The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. There's Eckhart Tolle. Robert Do-It-Yourself is a mechanic. If you ever gotta do a valve job, I recommend watching his YouTube videos. And then you can put that on the desktop for easy retrieval. So if someone likes Eckhart Tolle, they could just like click on the desktop and it would open right up to Eckhart Tolle. And then use the libraries once they open back up. People can get library cards, and they can also access a lot of books and music and different things online for free. So that's really important. And the last thing I want to say is that today I feel confident to take control of my physical and mental well-being. I feel I can make my own decisions, and I am on my way to creating a healthy and happy life. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to hand it over to Rather Shatham.
Thank you, Colleen, and so much for that story. If we could just go back to the slide before, because this is what I consider my $1 million question, and that is, how do you feel when you have no choice in a decision that is important for you or to you? And I know now a lot of us are experiencing this with the whole COVID-19 thing. We are really, in a lot of ways, we don't have choices, whether it's to wear the mask, which a lot of people don't like to wear that mask, or if it's not being able to visit people in the nursing home. We've lost our ability, or we've lost our connection to be able to make decisions for ourselves in a lot of ways. And so in thinking, preparing for this webinar, I've thought about that a lot. The fact that we have lots of people within our mental health system that this is their daily life. And so this question of how do you feel when you have no choice, there's many, many different feelings that rise to the surface. You feel frustrated. You may feel alone. You may feel not valued or not important in a way, or sad. All these feelings rise to the surface, and now we are all collectively experiencing the experiences of these feelings. Okay, next slide, please. So what is shared decision making? So this is a interactive and collaborative process between individuals and their healthcare providers that is used to make healthcare decisions pertinent to the individual's personal recovery. And there's two, I think, really important words in this this slide here: collaborative. It is a collaborative process now. It's not us as providers making decisions for people. And then the other one is the own person's personal recovery. And when you throw in that, we're talking about their values and the things that they want. Next slide, please. So I think in order to kind of talk a little bit about the shared decision-making process, we have to kind of revisit the way that we have done things in the past. And in the past, things were very paternalistic. We were very paternalistic in the way that we provided care for people. It's just the way it was. So we at NIAPRIS like to use the term experts in the room. And so when we refer to that back in the day when there was no shared decision making, we were the only person in the room that had that expert hat on, not realizing there was another person that was the expert all along, and that it was the person receiving services. So we are now in that room now where there's two experts in the room. So we've gone from this service system that was very paternalistic, where you gave people lots of information that we felt was best for them. We hoped that they would follow. That didn't always happen, to more of a way in which we now work with a person in helping them make the decision, and we make that decision together in a shared approach. There is mutual attempt to reach consensus on the decisions that are made. And we do this by giving people lots of great information and different recommendations as well. But we take into account the values and preferences of the person that we're providing services to. So it's more person-centered than ever when we consider a person's values and that kind of thing. Next slide. So why was this created? Well, obviously it was created because the other way was not working. Now we have an equal voice in the process, which is the person. You know, their voice is equal to ours, so to speak. It's also about informed choice. So we're giving people lots of choices or menus of services as to what may fit best for them. When we do both of those things in tandem, we increase the level of independence and empowerment for the people that we're providing services to. So I want to go back to informed choice for a minute. I know that in whenever I've found myself in the medical setting of any kind, whether that be an emergency room or a doctor's appointment. Well, I'll use the emergency room just as an example. So how many people here on this call have ever been to the emergency room? They've given you your discharge papers, and you go home and you really want to follow those discharge papers, but you can't make heads or tails out of what they've said in that discharge paper. There's lots of medical jargon, you don't understand it, and it makes it very, very difficult to follow. When we help people with giving them information that they can understand, we actually help people with that choice so they can understand their choices. Next slide. So the benefits are numerous for folks that we're talking about. There's an increased benefit for people, for the both participant and the provider, because when the participant has a stake in the game, so to speak, they are more involved than ever. So obviously, if you're more involved in the decision-making process, you're going to follow through on those decisions that you made at a higher rate. And so people think or believe that they are more involved, and they are more involved. They're going to find the services that they participate in more robust for them because they have a stake in the design and everything like that. But also, if you consider the provider, we want to help people reach outcomes and things like that. We want people to better their lives. And when we're able to do that, we actually feel pretty good about it. We feel that we provided quality care for folks, and we feel like we've actually helped that person improve their lives. So the satisfaction is actually on both ends. The improved communication is also important. So if there's that trusting relationship that is built between provider and participant, that leads to great conversation, great skill building. So when you have the improved communication, people listen to each other and come to that consensus that benefits the person that we're providing services to. Also, obviously improved outcomes. So when people reach an outcome, that's a win-win, right? We want people to be able to reach the outcomes that they desire, that they have chosen. And that when that happens, obviously we feel better as well. Also, reduced costs. So there may be more or less trips to the emergency room when people are being able to work on the things that really matter to them. There may be less inpatient visits when people are using the tools, so to speak, that they have developed in consensus with the person that the provider. So everybody wins. There's so many benefits to people that are when we provide services in this way. Next slide. So why is it empowering? Of course, when you put into place this shared decision-making process, we are reflecting, or it should reflect the personal preferences of this person, the things that matter to them. And when we throw that in, so to speak, the person participates more because they have a stake in the game. They feel like their voice matters. And so they're not doing anything that they wouldn't do without their input. Having information and tools is really important as well. So we have a full-length training on shared decision-making, and in that training we talk about something called decision aids. And these are things throughout the process of the shared decision-making process that helps people make decisions. And it could be a computer program that kind of is a checklist for people in terms of the services. It could be a mentor. Whatever helps this person make a decision, rather than us make that decision for them, because we never get where we want to go, so to speak, when that happens. Obviously, it just gives people a voice in the healthcare decision. That's really important. I think this last, or second to last bullet here of support self-efficacy is really important, because this is really the belief that the decisions that I make in my care count. And they're also going to be effective. But I have to believe that. And I don't get to that point until I'm involved in the decision-making process. So this really gives people confidence in terms of their healthcare decisions, but I would say that it gives confidence in all aspects of a person's life when we're able to increase this person, or help this person's self-efficacies increase. And finally, they're more likely to follow through on the decision if they have a voice in making that decision. None of us on this call like to have decisions made for us. We don't like to be told what to do, basically. So when we involve people in the shared decision-making process, they now have that voice, but they also follow it with action. And so that's really important as well. So I'm going to actually pass it over to Michael Ballister. He's going to give you a tool that people can use called WRAP, in crisis or not in crisis. So Michael, take it away.
Thank you, Rob. So I want to talk a little bit about WRAP, and that is the Wellness Recovery Action Plan. And it is, as Rob said, an effective tool for individuals to promote wellness and recovery. And I think especially now when things are chaotic and difficult with the pandemic and coming to grips with the needed changes about racial injustice, that, you know, having a plan in place, having this WRAP in place is something that could be a really, really useful tool for the people you work with. It was developed by Mary Ellen Copeland, and additional materials on the WRAP and training on it is available through the Copeland Center for Wellness and Recovery. Next slide, please. So what is the WRAP? So the Wellness Recovery Action Plan, if you take a look at, just break it down word by word, it is a simple, low cost and safe strategy and really a guide to help people with their daily living. And if you look at those words, Wellness Recovery Action Plan, we need to look at those separately and in combination. It focuses not only on people addressing their particular issues, but it talks about, what am I like when I'm well? What do I need to do to keep that going? What about my personal recovery and what's going on? And what kind of actions can I take, and what kind of plans can I make for each part of it? So looking at it, it's all separated. I spent a lot of time in my career working in addictions, and when I see Wellness Recovery Action Plan, I hear recovery. And certainly there is a big focus on what people need to do in order to not relapse and to not do things that are going to create problems for them. But this plan looks at the whole picture. So it's not just recovery. It's not just wellness. It's all of these things put together. And it's really important, and I certainly understand that many programs might be required to do a WRAP plan for someone, but the reality is it's really important to understand that as it's designed, it's most effective if it is the individual's choice. And all the material, and certainly Dr. Copeland talks about the need for the individual when they're recovering for wellness, when they're looking at their wellness, when they're looking at their recovery for mental illness, and developing those action plans, that it really needs to be the person's choice. So, how they use it, who they show it to, whether someone helps them or doesn't help them, all those things are really important and really should be the individual's choices. And if you're, as an agency, required to do that, see what you can do personally to make it more of the person's choice if you can. It's really the program's responsibility to educate, advocate, involve peers in this process, which is a really big and useful part, and also provide the WRAP templates and purchase the books to really help them develop and do the work of the WRAP plan. Next slide, please. So Mary Ellen Copeland talked about 5 key concepts while she was developing this. And these concepts, and she found through her research that these concepts were really essential to be effective for recovery work and developing an individual's recovery from mental illness. So I kind of see these as spokes on a wheel. And those, in order for that wheel to turn correctly and to move along, all those spokes need to be strengthened and help people along with their personal journey. And when something's not going on, it's really helpful to look at which part of that wheel is starting to get flat, which spoke may need some help. Because, as the reality is that we can do great in a lot of different areas, and certainly the people we work with can be doing really well in a lot of their areas. But if there's a problem, take a look at these spokes, take a look at those parts of the wheel, and see where maybe it needs to be shored up or it needs to be inflated. So, the hope, we need to make sure we instill and that people are aware that people who experience mental health difficulties can recover, and they can lead a valuable and healthy life, regardless of their diagnosis, regardless of medication. All these things are possible, and they can meet their life goals and their dreams. Personal responsibility, taking that responsibility, that individual taking responsibility for their wellness, for their recovery. Being educated, getting the information about, what is important, learning what they can as far as expectations of medication or different modalities of treatment, or what's going to help them, and understanding things like meditation or mindfulness, or as Colleen talked about, finding that great location where you can go and see a wonderful stream and really kind of gently relax yourself. Self-efficacy, learning to speak for themselves, making decisions in their best interest, all those things are very, very important. and support. Who is supporting, who can support them in their continuing journey along and staying well or recovering, you know, and dealing with the difficult times. Providers, friends, families, what's the support mechanisms that they can use? Next slide, please. So what are the key elements of the RAP? And the first thing I think is really important is the RAP values. And we'll talk about those in a couple minutes, but it also includes, excuse me, it also includes those spokes on the wheel, all those pieces of that. So included in the elements of RAP is a wellness toolbox. And that wellness toolbox is not just a list of tools, it's things that help people not only to maintain their wellness, but also to when things are going difficult or when there's different issues going on. Those tools that they can use in each parts of the plan that look at how can I maintain myself, how can I maintain my wellness, how can I recover from a crisis situation, all those things that work. And the more, and this peer process and having peer involved is really important because the more minds that come together, the more ideas that people can have. You know, identifying the triggers and developing action plans of what they need to do when they get triggered or when things get dangerous. And Colleen talked to me about a great trigger, an action plan she uses that when she's on the phone with a relative who starts getting kind of speaking negative talk or kind of downing talks, she says, oh, my cookies are burning, I gotta go now. So I'm gonna start using that as much as I can. And I love that idea because it's a very simple, it's very proactive, and it's really kind of taking control of the situation. You know, finding out and identifying your early warning signs and developing plans and actions with that. The sign, you know, when are there signs that are breaking down? When are those crisis moments where I'm starting to slide down, but maybe I'm not quite aware of it, and what can I do? And also, you know, there are times where, you know, our decision-making and the individual's decision-making isn't as the best. So developing a crisis planning. Who can I turn to when it's bad? When do I, you know, when I can't really take charge of my life at the moment, what can I do? And that's the question with the crisis planning. And also post-crisis planning. What happens when people are coming out of that? How do I step back into my recovery and my wellness lifestyle? Taking the time to do that. And this last piece, this crisis planning and post-crisis planning, is extremely important, and we really recommend people take that RAP and use it to fill out those advanced directives. And Larry's going to be talking about those in a minute. But things that, you know, what we're talking about with all this, and next plan, please, next slide, please, is that, you know, making the individual's choice is most important. And making it, you know, that shared decision-making that Rob talked about in the advanced directive, as well as a RAP plan, all of these can help. But why was it created? And the best person that can share that information is Mary Ellen Copeland. And I want to have you listen to the short clip.
I was in and out of the hospital, and they were trying to stabilize me on other medications. I could no longer work. My life just was in a downward spiral. And before long, I was living on $500 a month of Social Security disability payments, and I was in a housing complex for the elderly where there were spaces for a few people who were considered to be permanently disabled. And I was very, very discouraged, very, very discouraged. I felt like my life was over. And it was at that time that I said to my psychiatrist, how do people with these kinds of symptoms get by on a day-to-day basis? And he said, I'll get you that information for next time. So I really looked forward to that next visit. And he was hoping that in my confusion, I think, in my having these difficult symptoms, I'd forget about it. But I hadn't forgotten about it. And I said, where's this information? And he said, I couldn't find any information on that. I said, we don't have anything like this. This was in the mid to late 80s. And he said, we don't have that kind of information. We have information on medication. We have information on restraint. We have information on hospital programs. but basically people with this kind of situation, they don't get better. This is not the kind of thing that you should be thinking about.
And, thank goodness that she didn't forget about that she continued with her passion. She continued with the energy and passion that she get from being stagnated in a system that wasn't giving what she asked for, and developed that. And that passion led her to create the tools, to create the RAP plan, and also helped her earn a PhD by researching its benefits and its efficacy. Next slide, please.
I was in and out.
Oh, one back. There we go. So what are the benefits of the RAP plan? As I said, Dr. Copeland actually got her PhD looking at those benefits and researching them. And there's plenty other research about RAP. But what it's shown is that it increased hopefulness, enhanced awareness of symptoms, triggers, strengthened social support systems, and improved the responsibility, the personal responsibility for their wellness. And this is a huge benefit for people trying to develop and maintain a wellness and recovery lifestyle. There was a reduction in anxiety and depression. People have felt a personal improvement in the quality of life. And there was also an increased positive attitude and knowledge about recovery. And what's really important of that's not only for the individuals who do the RAP plan, but that's for the providers themselves. As they've learned about it, they understand the process and they can work with people better. Improve self-management, peer support skills, and again, that peer involvement is really important with that. And the research has showed that it's been effective in multiple studies across the globe: Canada, New Zealand, China, all these different places are using the RAP plans, and they're finding them extremely effective. Next slide, please. So why is it empowering? And you can see a long list here of self-determination, equality, collaborative learning. These are actually the guidelines, values, and ethics of the RAP plan. And I took it word for word out of information right off of their website. So, what is empowerment? It's the process of a person becoming stronger, more confident in controlling one's life and claiming one's rights. And these things that they identify as the values of and the efficacies and the guidelines are the things that do help that. Adapting to personal responsibility, and it's meant to complement therapy. It is not therapy, it's meant to work alongside with it. Next slide. And that looking at, we talked about, I shared Colleen's idea of the cookies are burning to get off the phone. Very simple, very safe practices, achievable goals. Colleen also talked about those little steps. Incorporating philosophies and really promoting a way of life. And that way of life is a recovery lifestyle through a recovery lens for mental illness and many other issues that it's shown to work for. Next slide. So I want to let you know, if you want to learn more about RAP, Matthew Federici, who's the Executive Director of the Copeland Center for Wellness and Recovery, is going to do a webinar through NIAPers on July 8th at 1 p.m. So check out that information and take a look at it. I think it's going to be really important. I want to introduce Larry Hotchward, and Larry is my colleague and trainer from New York City and Long Island. So Larry, take it away.
Okay, so thank you, Michael Ballister. So I'm pleased to be, I know Psychiatric Advanced Directives, I know what you're thinking, that they saved the best for last. It truly is the exciting and sexy topic of mental health. And if you don't feel that way, then you might be like I was when I first learned about advanced directives. And I didn't really appreciate just how important that they were. But we can't predict the future, but we can most certainly plan for it. And that's the beauty and the importance of psychiatric advanced directives. Next slide, please. So what it is exactly, and psychiatric advanced directives are a part of the larger advanced directives. It's a legal tool that that allows people with mental health issues to state their preferences for treatment in advance of a crisis when they may not be able to have their wishes known or get them across in a way that would be helpful. You can have advanced directives for medical health, mental health, substance use health. We're focusing on psychiatric advanced directives, but we encourage everyone to have them, not just the people you work with, because none of us knows what's going to happen. We're learning a lot about that with all the crises that we've been dealing with the last few months that a lot of people didn't see coming. So going to encourage everyone, but we're going to focus on the ways this would be beneficial for the people that you are working with. Next slide, please. So why they were created? Well, they were created to serve as protecting people's autonomy, helping people to direct their care, self-direct their care during crisis situations, during times when they may not be able to communicate at all, or when they may not be able to communicate in a way that people feel that they're able to account for their best interests, or make themselves clear due to confusion or other things that may happen during a crisis. Next, please. So there is a National Resource Center for Psychiatric Advanced Directives, and on their website, on the opening page, they have this very important part which said, quote, "This time with the Psychiatric Advanced Directive, I did not receive any treatments that I did not want. They were very respectful. I really felt like the hospital took better care of me because I had my Psychiatric Advanced Directive. In fact, I think it's the best care that I've ever received." So that's an anonymous quote that they have there. And what has been proven is that people with Psychiatric Advanced Directives are more likely to receive care more in line with their wishes, with their concerns. This is because a lot of states have laws that have that specifically say follow advanced directives if they're prepared usually in a clear and concise manner. People have to be able to understand what you're asking for. Not every state has laws. A lot of them also have either regulations or precedents established by cases that have gone before the court. Next slide, please. Different states have many different laws. As I mentioned, in New York, we have some state laws regarding appointing a healthcare proxy or agent, which is a part of an advanced directive. The advanced directive is also sometimes called the living will. So the advanced directive is the directions, is the written out directions of what you want, and the healthcare agent or proxy is the person that helps to interpret what you wrote if there's any questions. So there's somebody who's able to help make sure that not only your wishes are followed, but if there's something that's not so clear, then they would be able to make it clear rather than void the document because the hospital didn't understand what you wanted. And we'll talk a little bit about more of that in a second. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, a healthcare agent or proxy is advisable. It's not always required, but without one, if a hospital says they can't figure out what you were trying to say in your document, they may get away with not having to follow it. By having an agent or proxy, that would help. Now, New York is one of the states that says if you have an agent or proxy that is your spouse, for instance, and you should get a divorce or a legal separation, you would have to redo your document at that time. It would become void. Now, you can still have your ex as your healthcare agent, but they want to prove that that's who you wanted by doing it again. For some reason, New York thinks that maybe your ex won't have your best interests at heart. Some other states feel that way too. And some of you might agree with that. So depending on how you feel, that law is just to remind you, reconsider your healthcare agent. And if you still want to make them your spouse, that's fine, as long as you can see on the screen, they still understand your wishes and directions. They still agree with them, and they still have your best interests in mind. Next slide, please. Other things to put into your psychiatric advance directives, specific things you want in your healthcare and don't want, such as certain medications, things that are helpful. You can include your wellness tools that you might have prepared, or the people you work with rather, that they may have prepared in their wellness recovery action plans. Things that aren't helpful. People should point out, when people lay hands on me, it tends to lead to trouble. When people play Beatles music, I tend to feel really good. Other wellness tools that help you, deep breathing, those should all be listed so that people have a good idea, not only of what you want, but what you already know works well for you. Courts have honored documents that are clear and convincing, meaning things should be spelled out, and you also should have some flexibility. Because if you make it too specific to a particular practitioner, a particular facility, and the person you're working with doesn't end up there due to emergencies, overcrowding, etc., too specific circumstances may help to void out that document for that particular crisis, because they won't be able to follow it due to the specificity. These documents have limitations, such as in an emergency circumstance, limited resources, etc. If your preferences conflict with general medical practice or relevant laws or regulations of that governing body, that will also create a conflict and may void the document. Next, please. So you can also put in your medications, the treatments you prefer, the facilities that you want. Certainly talk about disposition planning so they can start working at it before you may be able to give them directions on your own. Next, please. End of life care. What do you want? What don't you want should be listed there. For instance, I wouldn't want to be connected to tubes and kept alive artificially. On the other hand, I would want CPR. I would want to get through a milder crisis, such as cardiac arrest. I don't want my family unplugging me while I'm ordering my lunch. I want to have some say in all of this. Next, please. What are the benefits of psychiatric advance directives? They help ensure that somebody is looking out for you if you're not able to do it. The people that you work with, they're the principal, and their agents looking out for them. People direct their care even when they're not currently able. They ensure that the care that a person wants is centered on their goals, their needs, and they help keep their recovery goals on track even during an unexpected crisis. Next, please. Here's a sample ID card. Everybody should have one if they have advanced directives. Keep it with your insurance card. The facility will always find your insurance card no matter what shape you're in. It should be there though, because once they find your insurance card, they're not probably looking for anything else. Next, please. So why are these empowering? Well, they reflect your preferences even when you're not able to make them clear. They ensure people are looking out for you even when you're not able to ensure that yourself. You have a voice in your decisions, your healthcare decisions, even in a crisis. It supports self-efficacy. It continues the work you're doing even if you're in a crisis. And you're more likely, the people you're working with, to have their directions followed, get their needs met, again, even if they're not able to make them clear at that time. So with that, I hope that this gave you a grounding in psychiatric advance directives. We have trainings, as you'll see. We want to thank you for all of this. Before I turn it back to Ruth, I want to thank everyone who's been here today. We talked about working together. We talked about people planning themselves. We talked about people planning for the future. With everything we're seeing with COVID-19, with social unrest, it's never been more important to plan ahead and to plan for any eventuality than it is now. And I hope we've been able to help you see new ways to help the people you're working with start to do that kind of planning. With that, thank you for coming here, and I'm turning it back to our director, Ruth Cologne-Wang.
Thank you, Larry. I just want to thank Colleen, thank Rob, thank Michael, and of course, Larry, thank you all for sharing with us your expertise. We really appreciate it. We've got just a few minutes for Q&A, and so we want to open this up. And I've got the chat box. And do we have questions? Oh, you're welcome. All right, so could you put up the sample ID advanced directive card information? So,
Yes, so I had that in a previous iteration, a link. I'm going to go try and find that.
okay, great, great, thank you. I'm glad you guys are finding this useful. Thanks for letting us know. So just some information, if you're interested in like a one-on-one training with you and your organization or you and your team on any of these topics, we go to you, virtually we go to you now, but we used to physically go to you, and we hopefully when things open up, we will go back to physically go to your program, your organization, your department to train you on site. Now we train in shared decision making, we train in RAP, and we train you in psychiatric advanced directives. So especially psychiatric advanced directives, I know it's a bit complicated, and there's probably information you want to know about yourself and also for the people you work with. And so there's a lot of questions you may have. And so it's always best to just give us a buzz and we will do a webinar just for you and your team. We won't go to Georgia. We won't go to Georgia. Sorry, Georgia. But give me a call and we can work something out. Do we do train the trainers? We actually do not, and I'm sorry about that. For RAP in particular, that is a copywritten document, you know, kind of service. And so we train you on how to do it, but then the actual, you know, document and all of that, you have to purchase it. And they do train the trainer. And they are wonderful. Colleen is actually a train the trainer. So if that's actually something you're interested in, just let me know and I'll see if we can get Colleen or someone else in New York to do that for you. You're welcome, you're welcome. Can I get a copy of the video? What we're going to do is put this online in video format so that you have it, and then you could go to the videos that you're interested in. But also, we didn't find any of this ourselves, you know, all this is on YouTube, and so it'll give you some information as to where to search it for on YouTube. Thank you so much. They said it was a great webinar, guys. Colleen is here. Great webinar, Colleen. Oh, good. There's someone here who's a certified RAP trainer. Any questions before we go?
The slide, just to let folks know, the slides will be available along with that video on our website. And I think we asked people to give us like 24 hours for it to get on there.
That's right. Perfect. Thanks for adding that information.
And I just want to say, I'm having trouble finding the link. The card is available on the NRC PAD. So if you go
Excellent.
if you Google NRC, just put in NRC PAD, you'll get to their website. I'm just having a little trouble finding which page.
Can you add that in the chat box, Larry?
What? Oh,
What
yeah.
those initials are? Can you add that in the chat box?
Go
Right
to,
now.
to New York State.
Well, I actually.
You're welcome, Rosalind and Jeannie,
Okay.
Patricia, Linda, Bonnie, Glenda. This is great. So we're going to get that in the chat box, just at least the initials, and then you can Google that yourself. But remember, this is also, there you go. Thank you, Larry. This is also information that you can review again, because within 24 hours, we'll have the video posted on our website, which is nyaprs.org. There you go. Thank you, Desiree. All right. So thank you, everyone. Larry, I appreciate you. Rob, I appreciate you. Michael, I appreciate you. Colleen, I appreciate you. So much wonderful information. I really do appreciate you being here and you sharing all of that with us. And I'm so proud to be your director. Take care, everyone. Thank
very
you.
much, Ruth,
Take
and
care.
all.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Colleen,
you.
you're outside. I love it.